All right, so welcome everyone to Changeathon Part 2. We're really excited to have everyone back here to hear the update from the amazing pictures. And so quickly, we're gonna share like these are our pictures, Ajita, Savannah, and unfortunately, our Emma isn't able to make it because of work. But she did send in her update, so I will be sharing that shortly. So I'm gonna be passing it off to Ajita in a minute. I'm just going to share with you quickly the agenda. We're going to do obviously the intros. Our pitcher's going to share our updates. And then we're going to go in panel style questions where I have a few questions and then we'll open it up to both the pitchers and the audience to ask about their experience with Changeathon, what it was like working on their pitches and everything like that. So I'm going to stop my screen share and pass it out to you, Ajita.
Great, thank you, and great to see everybody again. So first of all, thanks for all your comments during the first Changeathon meeting. It was actually extremely helpful because it helped me process some of the thoughts I had. So my actual immediate goal, as I spoke last time, I was trying to understand barriers to career change. But more importantly, I was trying to do a empathy map, sort of try and understand what people are going through, what are they feeling, what are they thinking, and how does this impact how they are doing what they are doing. So a number of comments sort of helped me think through some of the interviews I had done. I'd spoken to several colleagues at Takeda where I work, and I had asked them about career change and their thoughts, their successes, etc. So some of the questions that you posed, one was, John Mercer, you talked about career change could have a negative connotation. And I'm still working through that. Your point had been prospective employers might not look at this change positively, and it might not reflect on one's resume. So again, that will take a little bit of time to understand more from the prospective employer perspective. But again, as I was thinking of this originally, I'd been thinking about it in terms of doing career change within your current organization, where perhaps it might be more acceptable and there could be more opportunities and support. So, but now thinking about if you're trying to do this outside of your current organization, again, there could be this potential of being looked at negatively. Is it seen as a risky move? And even as I was speaking with people who had successfully done this, I think there's still feeling of, am I taking the right risk? And would this eventually lead to sort of me not being able to continue or grow in this new career? So it's definitely something to explore, and and having departments, and what I found in my company is that there are departments and regions who give opportunities within the current organization to allow one to explore other career paths. And so one of the things I'm going to try explore is, why is this not more widespread? Why is it just specific departments and regions which allow you to do this? So that's a really important question. And another point that was raised by Annette and Chris, is this sort of in keeping with the culture of the company? Because in some companies you need a sponsor, and what I realized is a lot of the people who had made this change, there was a lack of clarity in the process. So perhaps this is also another impediment to people successfully changing careers. So, but the ones who did eventually get what they wanted, these individuals networked, reached out to colleagues inside and outside of their organization for informational meeting, sort of used their political capital. So it wasn't just the the step of applying to a job, but they sort of had to make it happen. So I think this is a huge barrier. If you don't have a sort of well charted out path to doing something like this, it's I think the hurdle is higher. And incentives, I think again, along with the networking, the individuals who manage to do career changes within their industry even, they usually had a mentor. So again, these are some initiatives that perhaps could aid, having a mentor who can help you chart out a path. I think that would have immense impact. So in all, after hearing your comments and then sort of thinking back on the interviews that I had done, I think it was extremely helpful to sort of come up with some of these barriers that I was looking for.
Amazing. Thank you for that. We're going to follow up with a few more questions. So thank you also for the shout out to John. Savannah, and you're up next.
All right, thank you so much. So excited to be here. I actually just had my club like an hour ago for the first time. So very fresh on my mind. Definitely, took action this week. I only had a few kids show up, which I did expect. I was kind of talking about that, like Zoom fatigue and also just lack of participation in the virtual world. But it was pretty beautiful. My kids wrote narratives this week, and my kids have been through some really hard things. And so it's kind of an emotional week for me to read some of them and process them. And I had one student who talked about she's 16 and she can't stop thinking about her impact that she wants to have on the world and just how she wants to, like, there's so much she's thinking about, and she just lays in bed thinking about like these big giant global problems, and how she really wants to have a club that could really kind of push her and to do more. And she was super fantastic. And so she was one of them that showed up today, and she's really quiet in my class of like 32, but she just had like a new energy today, and there's a really great group. So I feel very optimistic moving forward. It's 4 girls so far. So hopefully we'll also get some male representation as well. The 2 ideas that they were most excited about were, first and foremost, creating an Instagram that could serve as a news feed. So they're reading articles, and more than just things that are happening within our community, but really, like, one of my girls, Faith, she's Nigerian, and she's very, very very enthusiastic about her culture. And so there's been a lot of violence that's been happening in Nigeria as of recently. And so she really wanted to spread the word about that. So how are they spreading information about more global things rather than just what's happening with COVID, for example, or within their direct sphere of influence? So we talked about that. And they also really want to make a podcast, which these girls are very quiet. And so I was like kind of shocked, but excited. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. So I guess that's a question that I kind of have and am open to ideas for, because we're all virtual, obviously. So how could I get like audio? And the podcast wouldn't have to be like the most amazing quality, because it would just be within our school community that we'd probably put this out. But that's something that they're really excited about too. So I am really excited to center these girls' voices, especially because they're naturally quieter students. I also kind of think, as we were talking about more and more ideas, I need to think of some sort of cadence that I want to approach this club with. So like this month, it's going to be climate change as our topic. And so maybe we have like the Instagram is the focus for week 1, and each kid reads an article and writes an Instagram post. And then we kind of have like a content calendar of some sort almost. And then maybe week 2, that's like our podcast week or a discussion week. So I think I need to kind of be more forward thinking about how I want the cadence of it to go. And I think too, when students experience trauma, they have a hard time forward thinking, even at just like assignments and things that are happening within the future. So I think also providing them with the skill set to like make a content calendar, or to be forward thinking, or to think 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time about what they want to put out into the world would be really helpful for this group of kids in particular. So I feel good. I'm really excited. I want to get hopefully a few more kids in there, but I would rather it be small and consistent than just kind of a random group who don't want to participate. So that's where I'm at with that.
Amazing. Well, there's definitely a lot of here in the chat about how to support the kids. Personally, as a social entrepreneur, I love hearing about young people wanting to make a difference. And there's plenty of resources both for supporting career development in large organizations, starting a podcast. So again, we'll follow up with the pictures on the resources. I'm going to share quickly Emma's update, as unfortunately she isn't able to join us for those that have just joined us. And then we'll go into the panel / questions for anyone that is interested in asking questions, or the panel / pitchers are interested in asking the attendees questions themselves. You're more than welcome to also take turns and go off mute and engage that way. So as for Emma's updates, and I'm reading and speaking as Emma, I was able to to pitch Values Refresh project to the leadership team at the company and received the full support of the CEO and head of marketing. That's great news. Who's excited to be stakeholders and collaborators in the project as well. So that's a really amazing to hear that she got buy-in right away. To begin with, we will all brainstorm the desired outcome of Refresh and targeting projects launch for Q1 in 2021. The project has two parts of refreshing the current values in small focus groups and using platforms so that everyone across the company has an opportunity to leave their thoughts, which is great. We also asked targeted questions to guide reflection, including, does this value still represent us as a company? Why or why not? What are other words that come to mind when you think of core values? Secondly, we will come up with action plans to make living the values reflects on everything we do as a company. This includes a value check on all products, major initiatives, and OKRs. So Emma would love to hear what people have to say, and big shout out to Chris from Helpful Resources with her. So great job to Emma to hear buy-in. I think anyone that works in any organization that is anxious to share their ideas looks forward to this kind of outcome. And so for the panel questions, we'll start off with about your experience with Changeathon. What was the most impactful feedback that you received from the community? And Atita and Savannah, feel free to take yourself off mute.
Trying to understand, how this the negative, the thinking that this is a step down, or the negative impact it could have on your resume. I've always thought of this as a positive and a growth opportunity. So, fleshing that out a little bit more, and again, I still have to see how, I'm still working on this plan, who is it that I want to communicate these issues to? But, is it HR? Is it the departments, individual departments, etc.? And perhaps this is something that needs to be highlighted. How can it be, or how can it be highlighted as positive and not necessarily a negative aspect? And how can you, you don't have to do a career change, but if you have the opportunity, why not?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because as a startup founder and people that are coming up with new ideas all the time, we tend to have a belief that like, hey, this can only be a good thing. And until you share it, you're able to see a different perspective. You're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So I'm glad that you're able to see what hesitation people might have so that you can work on it. And so it's less discouraging, but more so like, oh, that's a great challenge to tackle, but also I can address this before they come up with it. And that's also a big sales strategy as well. Savannah?
Sorry, just to clarify, the best feedback, is that what I'm
the most impactful, but you can share the best feedback too, and we can always appreciate if you share it with you.
Oh, no. I meant like from the group, but yes, good. Okay, we're on the same page, I think. Most impactful, I just think different ways that I could approach like making this club more student-centered. So I loved the thoughtfulness around like the platform that I might be using and kind of how to engage that. thinking about like what's relevant to kids, and also just some of the articles that were sent over for not necessarily like podcast creation, but just some of the like initial ideas that I posed last week. Some of those articles were really helpful as well, and kind of trying to cultivate that community and group. So yeah, I think I'm not so worried about the ways in which I will execute this club, more so really kind of cultivating the community that I want to feel with my kids so that they can be empowered to be the leaders within this group, because the last thing I want is it to feel like another class. So I really appreciated that feedback, and I felt like it was helpful, and the kids really felt my energy today around it too. And I don't think I would have started it this early if I didn't, commit to this Changeathon. So thank you for the opportunity.
So we're always happy to have us. What our community is all about. So now the next question is, what feedback was the easiest to apply? Oh, this was a head scratcher question. I thought this would be an easier one.
The easiest, I'm going back to Annette's proposal to sort of try and identify people who've done a successful career change, those who might not have, and those, who are not really bothered to explore it. I think it was easiest to find people who have successfully navigated. So, because you've seen them in prior positions, you see them in new positions, you can then just reach out and explore. So I think that was, so I really liked Annette's suggestion of reaching out to 3 different groups. But yes, finding the success stories was a lot easier, and understanding their path was a lot easier than others.
Amazing. Savannah?
I think for me, it wasn't one specific piece of feedback that I applied, but more so, I think as a teacher, I don't get to collaborate with other adults and run my ideas across, multiple fronts. And so I think that was just really helpful to kind of have people who are so willing to like share their thoughts and just kind of throw different ideas at me. And that really got me thinking. I feel like usually that's my job, and the kids are kind of the ones that I'm like facilitating. And so it just felt a lot better to be able to, as I was kind of creating my slide deck for them today, and just kind of bringing energy to have this sort of whole like page of sources and feedback and ideas to lean on. And moving forward, I couldn't even implement all the feedback that was given. So I'm grateful that moving forward, I can kind of use that document, and it's been collected for me so that I can just lean on it when I need to.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about our community, that we don't expect you to go into every direction that people send. That's the thing about feedback, is that you take what you need, and the community is there for you and everyone that is interested in sharing the ideas, and looking for support, and really kind of mining out what works for you. So last question before I open it up to the community to ask their questions, and with the pitches to ask questions back to the community. What are your next steps? I know you covered it a little bit, but we would love to hear what next, because you've already taken great action, and surprisingly only.
I'm actually looking at the chat and the suggestions about surveys, either SurveyMonkey or I think the suggestion from Clemens, and I think that's something that I can utilize for the next steps as well, sort of trying to understand, is there even a need to provide clarity on the process? What might the need be? So that's something that I could incorporate.
Awesome.
So I think those are some good ideas.
Great. Shout out to Clemens. Savannah?
I think my next step, like I said, with the first question, is just to get myself organized. I think in education, it's easy to have a lot of ideas and not to ever put energy behind them, because everybody's so burnt out already. So I just really want to prioritize building out this club, at least for the next few months. My kids' action steps one of them like jumped on making a group me and got everybody's numbers and kind of did that. So that felt good. And then another one of the kids was like, okay, well, maybe we should all send out an email with our top 3 topics that we want to talk about for the next few months. So I really appreciated that. And I think if they can kind of bring that energy to the table, then all feel energized to kind of do more of the organizing and the like the minutia and details behind it.
Amazing. So now I will open it up to the community. What questions do you have for our pitchers and vice versa?
Sav, I just want to commend you for like starting the club. That's like huge first step. So that's awesome. And it's not really a question, but I feel like the 16-year-old that you were mentioning, you should give her like a fancy title or make her a brand ambassador or something and try to keep her feeling like really hype, because she might be the one to help you carry through the momentum and the energy.
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting. So I teach AP, which I think I told you, and from the very like first day when I read their writing, I knew how brilliant she was, but like can't see it in herself. And so when I read her narrative and just kind of saw how passionate, sorry, I'm also like stuffing my face with trail mix as we speak. But at the same time, I really want to like provide that space for her. And also at the same time, it's weird because I've never met these kids in person, and so I can't pick up on some of their kind of mannerisms like I can. And so I feel, yeah, Molly, I really appreciate that. Like, how do I give this kid a role that feels good for her while also not making her like a spotlight or a leader in a way that would kind of like make her shut down at the same time. So I think that will be a careful balance and something I want to be really strategic about. But it was cool to see her show up today. And even she sent me an email that was like, I don't know if I should come, and I kind of had to convince her. So it felt good that she did end up coming and showing up.
That's amazing. So Jimmy actually asked a really good question, and Jimmy, who I know personally, does a lot of community building work and have a lot of these kind of vulnerable conversations about character development as well. He asked, Savannah, how do you plan to recruit more male participants?
Yo, I do not know. These boys need to step it up. I'm not sure. I mean, the club naturally doesn't feel like it's something that is leaning more towards one gender. But at the same time, naturally, just in after school activities, I do have more girls showing up regularly, and I don't know like what that's about or what that looks like. I also know that we have more boys who are still participating in some of our like sports and things like that after school. So that could also be somewhat part of it. But I think if I could get 1 or 2 on the leadership team, so we have like an SGA or an ASB, and so if I could pull 1 or 2 of those boys who I did think were going to show up today but didn't, so maybe I'll follow up with them. And then I think if they could encourage maybe a friend or 2 to come, that would feel good. I really want it to be like relational though, so we have a homeroom class, and I put like an advertisement for it up a couple days, but I ended up taking it down because I didn't want it to be just kind of like art club, like come as you go. I do want it to be an intentional community. And so I do want it to be more word of mouth and kids being like, hey, I went to this really cool thing, you should come with me. So I want it to be intentional, but that feels important to me to make sure that this club is diverse, especially if we're having courageous conversations about all different topics. It's important to have multiple perspectives there for sure.
I have a question. Did you end up naming the club conversations, or what did you end up going with there? I might have missed it.
I named it Courageous Conversations today. And then I asked them, like, how do you feel about this title? Do you want it to be called something different? And they responded with, no, it's cute, CCC. So, there we go.
Cool. People have spoken. Ajita, I know we have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to say, if you're going to go down the survey route, I don't know how like feasible this is, but I think surveying can take a lot of like admin time, and like whether it's finding the right people to take the survey or sending it out, or then even if you get responses, then kind of like synthesizing that qualitative data. Maybe it would be cool to get like an intern or someone that's interested in that kind of communication, internal communication strategies and kind of get someone to help you with that workload, because I know it probably will take a lot of time.
Oh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. So yeah, thanks for the tip.
Ajita, just to jump on there, we should definitely talk. We have an intern.
Okay. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. And he loves this kind of stuff. So
Okay.
Amazing. I always hate to be this person, but we are at time. Please, I love this energy, and we're so great to hear from our pitchers as well as our community, continuing sharing resources, continuing to share tips, and the conversation doesn't end here just because the Zoom call does. I'm sure everyone is suffering from Zoom fatigue at this point in the week. So please continue. Let's move the conversation to our Slack group, that everyone can share their resources, and feel free to connect. If you saw someone that said something really interesting, give them a shout out. If you saw someone that shared an interesting resource with you, feel free to reach out and thank them in person, or thank them via Slack. Sorry, not in person. I wish it was in person, but via Slack. So this is it for our first Changeathon, but hopefully not our last. If anyone is pitching at the next one or having any ideas or other things that the community can help support you on, feel free to share that in our Slack group. If you're shy, I'm always happy to talk to you one-on-one. So I'm always available. Thank you, everyone. We are out of time before they kick me out or I kick myself out. So we'll see everyone back on Slack and at the next event. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Zach. Thanks,
bye.
Ajita.